I'm not the smartest person, so I like things very simple. So I'll try to, I try to explain also things very simply. And if it is beyond your, or it is, you think you know a lot more, you can step up and later we can discuss and learn more. But I try to keep things very simple and so that all of us take something away from the discussion. The other thing I have is, I have three, I think I have broken down my presentation into 3 parts. Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, 3 parts. The first one is I'll try to lay out and give you a small success story so that it really stimulates your thoughts. The second one is we'll look into what is happening right now as far as pollution is concerned around the globe. And the third one is, as I am an activist too, apart from being a professional engineer, I take pride, especially we have learned it from most of the environmental activists, Purushottam Reddy sir is here, Narasimha Reddy sir is here. So you learn, you've learned some things in life for being an activist, and I'd like to share that with you. More than technical information, it is an outlook or attitude. Okay, let's go to the first one. This is an inspiration story. This is inspirational to me because no matter what the discussions say, you can see this is in USA after the enactment of the Clean Air Act in 1970. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Parle. It's okay. Thank you. So you can see from the year 1980 here, their population has grown up 47%. Their GDP has gone up 196%. The energy consumption up 47%. Now you can see the pollution. It's gone down. So there is a myth that population is increasing, too much of consumption, pollution is increasing. But that is a myth. It is a story. This is where you can see. Okay, there are 6 criteria pollutants. You can see aggregate emissions. There's 6 pollutants, if you are involved with air pollution, it's particulate matter, organic compounds, and nitrogen oxide, dioxide. So there's all 6 of them have gone down. So that is the story. And let's see how they've gone down. Again, there is a lot more complexity to it, but I'll try to simplify it. The first one is they identify a source, wherever the pollution is coming from. For example, it is from a factory or a motor vehicle, right? And then the second one is they estimate how much of pollution is coming from. How much is it? How do they estimate? It's basic, simple chemistry. For example, if you burn a kilo of coal, how much of carbon dioxide is coming out, how much of carbon monoxide is coming out. There are simple chemical equation calculations that you come up with. And then the other thing is called source apportionment and adding up of all the emissions. So for example, if I were in a city of Hyderabad, and then if I look at the area, say this Gachibowli area, I should be able to tell how many vehicles are going, how many industries are here, and typically how much of pollution is coming out. So it comes with a lot of diligence and hard work that you put together all the information. But it is simple. When you go further into the science, there is a lot more calculations and complexity, but overall this should be simple. And then once you know how much of pollution is there, then you know how much of pollution will affect your health, and then you start using policy initiatives to curb the pollution. Okay? How do you curb the pollution? Say, for example, you put on an industry, don't emit more than 1 ton of carbon dioxide. That is one of the policy directives. So the policy has to be very clear and very practicable and very measurable. Remember this, it has to be measurable. Don't just write prose and poetry, it has to be measurable. Okay? Then how do you curb this? How do you decrease the pollution? You have to use obviously technology and other measures. And also the most important part of it is, I'm sorry, I think I went too far ahead. Okay. Another important point is the regulatory regime and continuously monitoring it. So you have to continuously monitor your pollution, whether it's decreasing or increasing. So in a nutshell, they did all this to achieve this. I hope this, I've made it clear that, it is possible that you can curb emissions. And now let's get into the second part of it, which is the global emissions as far as the global warming is concerned. Most of it is carbon dioxide equivalent. So forget about all other things, there are other greenhouse gases, but let's stick to the simple one gas, that is carbon dioxide. So how is it affected? You can argue 1700, temperature was like this, carbon dating, ice age, forget about all that. Ever since there were clear measurements, 1900, you can see that, especially after the rapid industrialization, actually this is an average line, so you can just ignore that for a little bit and focus on this. This is how much the temperature has risen right in front of us in the last 50 years. I mean, especially some of us would have been born and seen these things grow up right in front of our eyes. It's almost 1.5 to 2 degrees up in the last 30, 40 years. This is incontrovertible evidence. There is no argument about it. And this is the temperature rise, right all the way to the troposphere, even to the lowest level of the atmosphere. So we are well packed, like Purushottam Reddy sir kept telling us, we are in a sealed dome, all the way to the troposphere, no escaping. Now, how do they affect? There are a lot of things that happen, the polar ice caps will melt, a lot of islands will sink, the weather changes will happen. Agriculture, for example, if anybody has followed farming this year, most of the rains didn't happen in June, July. Just when your plants are growing, a deluge of water comes, floods that. So there is a change that will affect all. As far as the health is concerned, I'll give you a very good example. There is something called a wet bulb test that they do. Now it has come, it's there in Bangladesh, a lot of people are experiencing it. The humidity and temperature go so high, they go so high that the sweat on the body does not evaporate all day. So imagine how hot the body can get. And we will face that. And imagine if our workers, especially I think Narasimha Reddy Garu is trying to draft a policy for industrial workers. So imagine how our workers will feel. Some of us might be inside, but most of us will be outside. Nothing dries out from your skin. And we have here from construction industry, Mr. Raji Reddy Garu. He will tell you will he send his workers out to the field when the sweat doesn't dry off. You know the importance of sweat, right? The sweat has to dry off to cool our body. It will not dry off anymore. That is happening right now in Bangladesh in a lot of areas. This is immediately happening, but a lot of things like properties, if you have a lot of floods, you will destroy your property, livelihood. And another thing is the vectors, the bacteria and the viruses. Every temperature it changes. I don't know if anybody has studied basics of biology. There are mesophilic, cryophilic bacteria, which is, they like different temperatures, they flourish. So when suddenly temperatures change, we are not acclimated. Right from the stomach to our lungs, we have bacteria, virus. They are in symbiotic relationship with the virus and bacteria outside. It will completely change. The result, rampant diseases, rampant infections, which we don't have cures for. Okay, that is immediate. The biggest and the worst is loss of biodiversity. We all depend with, in this world, all living organisms have some kind of symbiotic relationship. You start, we all think if we can kill some of them, we'll be fine. But no, it will eventually come back. I'm sorry, there is a little bit of time constraint, so I'll go fast. I'll be happy to stay back in the evening if anybody wants to talk. This is how much of pollution we are putting out. A billion is 1 followed by 9 zeros, and that is 40 billion tons. Each ton is a kg. And if I wanted to delve a little bit into chemistry, but there is not much of time, but that is enormous amount of carbon dioxide in the air. The air that we studied has 20% oxygen, 70%, 78% nitrogen, right? 0.03% of carbon dioxide. That's all we can tolerate. But already it is 0.04, which is it has gone up by 25%. That is how much carbon dioxide has increased. And most of it is from fossil fuel combustion. The second one is, I wanted to discuss a little bit about the countries, what each country is doing. And so G20 happened a few months ago. Everybody must be familiar with it. So let's look at the G20 countries. The other countries are smaller economies. They don't have much production or much pollution. They do have, but not as much. So we look at the biggest polluters. These are the cumulative emissions. You can see United States has the highest. And the years, if you see from the rise of pollution, it shows the level of industrialization. US from 1900 or late 1800s had a rapid industrialization, coal burning, steam engines, heavy usage, transportation. You can see that it's accumulated. China, if anybody has studied Chinese history, it's after the reformation by Deng Xiaoping government in 1980. They started their production on the same path as the Western model of growth. You can see their pollution going up. India, we started from 1990, so you can see that we are going there a little bit. Not anywhere close to the bigger countries in tonnage. Quantifying the tonnage, it's a number, but you can see how much of carbon dioxide is increased in the world. It is more than 25% what is existing. So these are the other G20 countries, out of which Russia is the biggest. At this point, if someone has any doubt on this particular thing, you can raise your hand. I'll try to answer it. If not, I'll move front, because these are charts that you read and understand. This is not something I made up. All this is available on the web. That is the website. I'm sorry. You can go into that website. It's free. Pull out all the charts, see what country is doing what. It is very cool. They give very good information. How much is the tonnage of, what Russia did or what Brazil did, or for that matter, all of European Union. There are a lot of countries that has information. That is the website. If anybody is interested. अब इसमें खेल सकते हैं आप, आजमा लो क्या क्या information है उनके पास. Okay, here is why a lot of arguments come. You can see, if you come to 2020, let's go to the United States, which is my favorite, I pick on all the time. It has gone to the peak here. You see they're trying to decrease. They've come down from 20 tons to 15 tons annually, right? Whereas, India, we are still going up. We're trying to reach 3 tons. Here is China going up. Now, the Western countries will always argue, hey, we have decreased. देखिए हम कम किया है. आपके तो बढ़ते जा रहे हैं, India, China and other smaller countries. So that is a gridlock in some of the negotiations. Of course, Professor Narasimha Reddy has mentioned the polluter pays. That is critical. You have to keep that in mind. They have done the pollution, so they should. But their skepticism is, even if we pay and do it, you will still pollute. So again, one of the gridlock will happen in COP. go to the next one. This is a direct effect of temperatures. He mentioned about, Narasimha Reddy sir mentioned about the Paris COP, which had that you should get it down to 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial level. There was a temperature at pre-industrial level. You have to get it 1.5 degrees above it. That should be the goal. There was negotiation to 2 degrees also, but most of the island nations said get it down to 1.5 degrees. There's the latest, I think, the new information is that we are on a path, very soon we'll hit 1.5. Narasimha Reddy garu, I think we should hit it in 2030, right? Yesterday there was, I think last week, emission gap report, which shows that I think 2030, 2035, we should be getting to that 1.5. Forget about having any progress being made. Huh? Here, but not overall. And most of these will be affecting our countries, the tropical countries, equator, from Tropic of Cancer to Capricorn. And especially countries like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and the island nations of Southeast and Central America. We are very vulnerable to these problems. Okay, this is, if we don't do anything and if the current trajectory continues, this is what will happen. We will hit up to 4, which means we are challenging our civilization, our survival. If anybody has specific questions, I'll be happy to stay back and answer, because time constraint and this being a little bit technical, I'll move on to the next one. This is the second part about emissions and global warming. See the temperatures and the trajectory we are going on now is very bad, very bad. And the current policies are this way, but they're not being enforced. So we're not too happy about it. Let's go to my third part that I suggest. The first one was an inspiration example. The second one was about global warming and carbon dioxide. The third part, the more interesting part, which all of us environmentalists and activists and workers should know. Dr. Purushottam Reddy had mentioned about Rachel Carson. Rachel Carson was the one who wrote the book Silent Springs. How many of you have read it? I suggest you strongly read it. Here is a story, I'll quickly give you a synopsis on it. She's a marine biologist. Okay, she saw that they were spraying DDT everywhere. DDT, anybody has heard of it? They use it as an insecticide, right? So everybody was spraying it on the crops from 1940s and 1950s in the US. And then that DDT, they were also using it for killing the mosquitoes. That municipality vehicle will comes with a fog and goes, Now the DDT is not there, it is banned. But then it used to go around. So she realized that DDT was used as a pesticide. On plants also it was sprayed. She realized that DDT was not only killing the insects that they wanted to die, but it was killing all other insects. So when these small insects died, the birds that usually come in the spring, that chirp, sing, flap their feathers and perch on trees, they were not there. So she said, the spring is silent. Usually spring means it's beautiful, all the leaves will come out, the birds are flying. So that was the story she wrote. But she didn't just write an emotional story. There was a lot of methodical, systematic proof of how all these insects died, how the birds were not coming. And she showed all this on human health effect, how the kidneys were affected, how we are also consuming DDT. And it opened eyes and started the great environmental movement. But a lot of it was science behind the work, hard facts that she could gather to make her argument. The next one is Charles Darwin. How many have heard Origin of Species? Charles Darwin, survival of the fittest. No, he said he collected samples for 5 years in South America and Central America, went back to his hometown with all the samples. He was there for 20 years making these arguments to win. Not to win, but to prove that the theory of evolution exists. He was meticulous, methodical, looking at each and every fact, each and every change that happens, documenting it, and then making his argument that the evolution happens. Why am I mentioning these two examples? Is the rigor of science, the rigor of data and problem solving. You will not go anywhere, even in global warming crisis, without taking data. Data is divine, data is sacrosanct, which means it is essential for your arguments. And your ability to solve a problem. There is a problem, you have to solve it, you have to use the existing information we have. Data, when I say data, especially for non-science majors, if you ask how tall am I, so lamba hai, bol sakte hain aap. If I go stand in front of a basketball player, वो लोग बोलते हैं गिड्डा है, basketball के लिए काम नहीं आएगा. So if I go and say I am 180 centimeters, then that is the science of measurement. Everything else is your perception, lamba hai ya gidda hai. Right? So facts. You need numbers and facts relative to each other. That is essential. Some of it's for science majors and engineering majors, we have the advantage of doing numbers and calculations. But for non-science majors, it's very important that you look at facts. Professor Narasimha Reddy mentioned no obfuscation, means no, there is clear water, you see a coin down, but you put some kitchad on it or some dirt on it, you can't really see the coin. Right? Telugulo masibusi and chepparu kada. So you cannot confuse people. That is obfuscation. Obscurantism is not showing everything. You will do the biggest disservice to environmentalism if you don't show all the information, the good, the bad, the ugly. And other important thing is the technology breakthrough and deployment. We cannot go tell everyone to stop using their cars. We cannot go tell everyone to stop using this. We can only push for embracing technologies, although it is expensive. I cannot come here if you tell me, about 20 years ago, if you told me you cannot use your scooter and put petrol in it, I could have not come. But now I have an electric scooter, I will think and come in an electric scooter. So there is a technology change. If there was no Windows and operating system, you would have not been operating your laptops and doing your computations, which would have been much easier. You'd have been writing with your paper on hand. So technology is very important. So learn about technology, understand the technology, the deployment of technology. And finally, the broader picture is the policy directives, which, Leela ma'am in the beginning mentioned, there is policy made, but we have to translate it into action. So from this COP, what we can take away is that the policy directives that come out have to be, even we have to participate as Indian government will have to, but whatever has to be translated into action. If not, a policy remains on paper and it just becomes a directive. So these are my thoughts that I thought I'll share with you. Maybe they'll help you in thinking or having an attitude towards the environmental problems, or not just environment, any social issues that you're working on in your life. And finally, the most important aspect is your argument with facts, of course. That you all, whether you're writing an argument or speaking, it doesn't matter. If your arguments don't have the strength and the clarity, अगर उर्दू में बोलना है तो आपके लिए, अगर उसमें ताकत नहीं है या तेज़ी नहीं है या फुर्ती नहीं है, आपके गुफ्तगू बहुत दूर नहीं जाएगी. In Telugu pasaleeni vaadam antaru, podunu leni vaadam antaru. So for you as activists and environmentalists, I think these are essential. I am sharing my thoughts to you. And with this, I think I'm running up of time and the generosity given by Anita ji and Narasimha Reddy Garu. And so I always say this: no nature, there's no future. And I'll stick by it. I think it's not just a philosophical slogan, it's the hard truth that we have to face in life. And thank you so much for your time and attention. I really appreciate it. Thank you.